Good evening. Pastor Will here with one of our sons of the ministry, Maurice Webb. We're excited today. We're doing something a little different. As you see, it's for men's only tonight. We might be able to bring LyAshia in a little bit later. We're trying to do some technology stuff that I ain't quite figured out yet. So if we get it to work, those that are watching, maybe to pull her in, but we do have her on speakerphone. And I'm gonna try to call my wife and see if I can get her on speakerphone. She's in Florida right now, and we're going to see if we can get her. If we can, then she'll be able to chime in from time to time along with LyAshia. But we are excited that you all have tuned in today. And I thought I heard something click. Good evening. Oh, Pastor that's Will me doing here, feedback with one of our so sons. Just give me a second here. Maurice Webb. We're excited today. We're doing something a little different. As you see, it's for men's only tonight. We might be able to bring LyAshia in a little bit later. We're trying to do some technology stuff that I ain't quite figured out yet. So if we get it to work, those that are watching, maybe to pull. All right, let me give my wife a call and see if we can get her on. If we can, then she'll be on speaker. And if not, she'll perhaps call back in. But LyAshia, how you doing there?
I'm doing well, Pastor. Thank you for asking.
Well, very good. To those that, let me see if I can get my wife here.
Hello.
Hey, baby, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Great. What I decided to do was to put you on speakerphone.
I was watching you online. I can send you questions.
But
I mean, I can't. I was watching you online. You doing good?
Okay. Well, we got you live now on speakerphone. So LyAshia couldn't be here, so we have her on speakerphone. So if you ever want to chime in, I'm just going to leave you here on speakerphone.
Okay.
All right. So just make sure you talk a little loud, and we'll go from there. We still working on this technology, but we'll get it figured out. Anyway, welcome again. So let's try this all over again. Let's start again, Maurice. Welcome to Victorious Relationships with Dr. Will and Dr. Grace. We are here to talk about any type of relationship, anything that you're interested in talking about. We want you to feel comfortable and free sending us questions. If you have a question, you can join us on the chat or send your questions to info@trianglemarriageandfamily.org. info@trianglemarriageandfamily.org. Or if you're on Google Hangout, you can of course join us and send your chat questions directly to us. We would love to have you join in. So anybody that's watching, we would love for you to send us your questions. Now, talking about relationships, and I want to make sure I mute this. When we are looking at relationships, one of the things that I found out is that everything in life is about relationships, and none more specific than family, parenting, husband and wife, in-laws, parents. And Maurice, you have an interesting story that, before we get into some of the questions, that I thought was quite unique. You and LyAshia came to us as, I call them dinks, dual income, no kids. Young couple in the early 20s, just enjoying life, working, reminding me of my wife of our start years and years ago. And within a short period of time, you all went from no kids to having twins, taking on a teenager, which you became the custodial parent of your younger sister, and I believe also a mother.
Yeah.
A mother. And all of this happened, I mean, almost like overnight.
Yeah.
And so I remember doing some counseling with y'all and the stress that was causing all over, stress with you, stress with your wife, with your children, your sister. I mean, just the whole gambit. I mean, I sometimes I call this the tweeners. when you get pressure coming from above with your parents and from below with your children,
Absolutely.
and you in between, and all of this is hitting you at the same time. So I saw you go through that. Somehow y'all figured it out, hung in there, but you didn't stop there. You didn't just stress your way through it. You went and studied it and learned it. And I consider you now a relationship expert when it comes to parenting. But before we get into that, just tell us about that period and stressors. And LyAshia, if you feel like joining in, feel free as well.
Well, first of all, Pastor, thank you so much for having us on the relationship TV tonight. And it's just an honor to be a part of this. And certainly we did go through a lot. And one of the other things that happened during that time is my mom passed away.
Okay.
And so I was dealing with the stress of having to be there for extended family back up in Michigan. And so that was tough, because now I was also consoling my younger sister who had come to live with us, and just a number of dynamics that just began to play out. I mean, we even had a female dog in the house. I mean, and so for a brother living with all women, I mean, I had to figure out how to live with all women. So that was a challenge for me.
Okay.
But one of the things that I really felt passionate about was that I felt like there has to be a better way. And, you know, parenting became, it kind of dropped into my lap, but I always knew I wanted to be a better parent to my children than just passing through the day, or just being kind of y'all stay in your room and I'm off on the other side of the house. I always wanted to be engaged with my children.
Okay.
And I do give a lot of credit to my wife, who's joined us on the call. She really had a good structure to begin with, and it really helped me to understand it was important to be a parent that was a parent with purpose.
Okay.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that tonight, but I think that was one of the keys that we started with, was just learning how to have a purpose in our parenting.
Okay. Tell me about, and so going through this, before you all begin to study and learn, and really, when you talk about purpose, so when you had purpose made you then go and learn and educate. And that's what we've been trying to get people to do, and why we're doing Triangle Marriage and Family and Victorious Relationship, is we want people to know this is something that you were not trained for. But before you all went and got the education, went on the retreats, went on the workshops and the seminars, and going through that, and we'll tell a little bit about how far you have come. But share with us perhaps how you some of the drama that it brought to the family and to the home.
Sure. Well, we were in a situation where my younger sister was 12 when she came to live with us, and my wife was just ecstatic that we were going to take my younger sister in and be a blessing to her and be an impact in her life. And all hell broke loose. You know, we
I think LyAshia said literally.
we started with trying to be a family, to a young girl with she wanted to be in control of the situation. It was almost sometimes I felt like I was in the middle of a Royal Rumble, you know, and being pulled from one end to the other, trying to raise my younger sister and at the same time keep my marriage together, and not understanding fully what that was about, and trying not to take sides, and sometimes taking my sister's side over my wife. And so now when the kids are asleep, we're up arguing all night, and you know, it leads on into the morning, and you know, all of those dynamics. I went through a situation where I couldn't find work. My wife was hating her job. We were dealing with all kinds of turmoil, and yet at the same time, we had 2 new babies that came into the world. And for one child is difficult, but definitely for 2 children at one time, it was a nightmare for me, because we wasn't getting any rest at night. At times, it felt like we were failing our children because we would be so tired, and we just went through a lot with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That so we go we're in that, and I remember some of the counseling sessions that Dr. Grace and I did with you and LyAshia. Hang on in there, and I remember specifically saying, I don't know if your sister's watching, but I remember telling LyAshia, I said, what's that? Yep, I said, look, I know it's hard. She's 12, but all you got to do is understand that eventually she's going to be 18. So just hang in there for 6 more years. Then it was hanging there for 4 more years. But you all didn't just do that. You decided to and start telling us a little bit about that, to take this and you said you wanted to do it on purpose. And
Sure.
and that's me and Grace started writing relationship books on intimate relationships, but you took it to the level of parenting and family dynamics. So tell us a little bit about how you got to that place. I know you all took a particular job where you became house parents and some training, but take us through how you got to that place.
Well, I always had a passion to help. My undergrad degree is in social work, so that's in my background. And I stumbled upon something that really looked different. It wasn't your typical just pushing paper, and it was something that really was in the trenches. And it was a position where at the same time it was making a difference, it was also something I felt was good for my family, which was to, you always talk to us about learning how to do ministry together. And it stood out to me as something that I said, this is an idea where we can grow as a family, as well as helping a young lady, helping someone else. And so that was really what encouraged me to start the process. I really didn't know what I was getting into when I started it, but it really did become beneficial for us. We started training to learn how to parent. We went through extensive coursework on parenting with a purpose. We looked at dynamics of how to motivate your child, how to get out of just looking at discipline one way. I think sometimes we look at discipline just as the belt. And
we talked about that a little bit at our men to men session last night, and another parent had brought up the same thing. And I said, you know, most of us parent the way we were parented.
Absolutely.
And the way most of us was parented was a switch, a stitcher cord. You know, when this thing came out, was the football player that got in trouble?
Yeah,
Adrian Peterson, and he got in trouble. You know, most black folks are like, what? I mean, that's business as usual, but because that's all we've been brought up with, and it is a form of parenting, but is it the most effective form for that particular child? Because when the Bible says train up a child in the way that he should go, you have to look at it. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, I always challenge the parents when I'm doing a session with them. I said, what is the difference between discipline and punishment? And before they could even respond to that question, they're like, I didn't even know that was a question. I didn't even realize there was a difference between discipline and punishment. And, you know, punishment deals with what they did in the past. Discipline really trains them on how not to do it in the future.
Wow.
And that's one of the things that we
say that again.
Punishment deals with the past.
Okay.
What you did yesterday or what you did today at school.
So I'm gonna punish you for what you did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But discipline really deals with the future. It deals with, how do I get this child to understand not to do this again?
Wow.
To take responsibility for their own behavior. Even at a young age. My children are 4, and they already know that when they act up in school, that's going to mean time away from their bikes. That's going to mean time away from TV and iPad and all that stuff. And they don't want that. And so they're already consciously aware.
So they've learned how to discipline themselves.
Absolutely.
And that's interesting because, you know, not only were we brought up, most of us, primarily on punishment, our society is that way.
Absolutely.
We put you in jail for what you did. Absolutely. We lock you up for what you did. We execute you for what you did. But could we have disciplined you so you wouldn't have did it in the first place?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I think about when you're speeding down the street and the person is pulled over and the officer says to them, you know, you're going to receive a ticket for speeding. And a lot of times you say, okay, I got a ticket or whatever. But what really hurts is when you got to pay that money. And so a lot of times, you know, you got to pay that money, you start to realize, well, this is wasted money. And if I could just slow down on the road, that would really affect my financial status. And so sometimes we say, well, it's just a ticket. But really what the law is trying to get us to understand is that when you slow down, you decrease the mortality rate. You keep people from getting hit because you can slow down in time if somebody runs out in the street. And so it's learning how to discipline ourselves, that when we see the speed limit, that this is not just about me getting up the street a little bit faster, but this is also about making sure that I'm not hurting someone else. And so that's one of the things we're doing.
It's interesting because if you only think in terms of punishment, then your mindset is
absolutely.
Well, even when guys get out of jail, they don't get disciplined. They figure out how to get away with it, so they don't get punished. That becomes the mindset. So sometimes they'll lie about it, or they'll do it in the cover of night when nobody's watching, but they haven't disciplined themselves from doing it. They're trying to figure out how to keep from getting caught doing it. And that's what punishment does. Maurice, it's so interesting. A lot of people are quick to quote the Bible that says, spare the rod, spoil the child. Right. If you beat them, you spare their soul from hell. And a lot of people don't realize that word rod actually means discipline. But the Bible really speaks more in the New Testament about what you just said. The Bible says, and you fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And when I looked up those words, nurture and admonition, nurture means discipline, and admonition means instruction. Okay. We thinking about hurting them, which will provoke them, as opposed to discipline and instruct them, which will save them.
Absolutely. There's some basic skills that we teach our children and in our program, and these basic skills are not just for right now, but they're for life. You need to know how to talk to people. You need to know how to say good morning and good night. You need to have some greeting skills. We teach our children how to volunteer now. And we reward them because of that. Now, this is interesting because we had one of the parents that actually said, Maurice, well, aren't we bribing our children if we're just giving them something for if they do a good behavior? And I said, well, that's one way to look at it. But see, the idea is that we reward them for the behavior, and we discourage the negative behavior. And then at some point we pull the reward away, because then we're now saying that this is a part of life.
Okay.
And so they don't get the reward for it anymore, but now it's a part of who they are. And that's where the discipline comes in. And it's just like going to the gym or, focusing on your health. You have to continue to do it. And so this is where it really gets tough as a parent, because life is happening. We got busy jobs, busy everything nowadays. But at the same time, the discipline part comes in when we're consistent with our child.
What I find, and because life is busy, even with certain parents, they don't take the time to discipline. They just wait until something breaks and then they want to punish.
Absolutely.
And that's the easy way out.
Absolutely.
I just let you do something until you do something wrong, then I'll punish you, as opposed to spending time with you, disciplining you. So this is a great information. Dr. Grace, how you doing there?
Oh, I'm doing great.
Awesome. We're going to get into some more details here, but I just wondered if you wanted to greet. I think people can hear you, so if you wanted to greet us. I know you're down in Florida visiting your mom, but share with our viewing audience what's going on with you.
Awesome, Dr. Will, and really I'm thankful for what I'm hearing, but the conversation that you and Maurice is having is so needed, because so many times we run into parents that are pulling their hair out and they don't understand their children, and the children don't understand them, and it's just one of those situations that creates conflict in the home and keep that conflict going all the time, so that they don't really experience the joy of being together as a family. And as I listen to you all, I just couldn't help but thinking that one of the things that we're talking about here is parenting on purpose, having a purpose for what we do. And the best way to start that is, as the Bible says, to train up a child, is to start when they're young. What you're doing is disciplining them, but you're also giving them opportunities to learn responsibility. so that, as they grow up, they can practice this responsibility and carry it on into their family life when they get older as well. So, I think about that, and a lot more training needs to happen, and not just on the children's level, but even the parents. I think that as we, Dr. Will, as we have parents go through our parenting class, they're learning techniques, they're learning tools that they can apply at home to have successful communication skills with their children, because, it doesn't get any better when they get older. When they get older, when it gets more challenging, because they think that they know it all. So, great conversation, great discussion. I'm loving what I'm hearing, and I pray that there are a lot of viewers on, they're watching, and that they're texting and tweeting and Facebooking and getting this information out and getting other parents on the line so they can be a part of this discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Grace. And of course, one of the things that you're also doing is you do here at Triangle Marriage and Family here locally, you are doing mentoring with young girls and young boys. Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. We're doing parenting sessions. I find that when I get with the young girls and we don't talk about problems, yes, there are a lot of things that they go through, but I think that some of the experiences that they're having is as a result of missing tools that they did not get growing up. We're living in a society now where grandparents are no longer a staple in the family. Mm-hmm. So they don't have that grandmother, grandma to pass on values and religious beliefs that, tell them why. I have nephews now that, they're actually questioned, why. And when they know why, then they're more apt to want to do what it is we're telling them to do. So what we're finding in the boys mentoring and girls mentoring is that we do have some young people that are eager. They want to know, but they're frustrated because the harder they try, the worse situations seem to get because they're not using the right tools. And so we start off with basic things like self-esteem. Some of the times they, find themselves into a situation where they're not successful and they're wondering why I've done this, I've done that, and it's because they don't have that confidence in themselves and they don't have that self-esteem. So we do self-esteem, we talk about personal identity, we go to the core and give them the tools, and then we also give them an opportunity to share their experiences.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. And we're going to leave you on the speakerphone if you want to add. And we're going to hear from LyAshia a little bit later. But Maurice, when you present, and we have workshops and seminars here, and parents come in, some of them struggling with their children, and I guess it's really all ages. I mean, sure. You started using some of these techniques with I think your little girls are how old now?
4 now.
4, but you started when?
Well, we started using this with Marie.
Okay.
And, it grew from there, but she was 12. So
okay.
We had a teenager and small children.
And small children, and the same techniques worked with
Absolutely.
them. So when you present, though, and I've sat in on a couple of your sessions, one of the things you do is talk about parenting as a lifestyle.
Absolutely.
And then talk about different styles. Share
Sure.
with the audience a little bit about that.
Well, we believe that there's 4 different styles, and these studies have been done all across the country and probably all across the world on looking at 4 basic styles of parenting. Number 1 is the authoritarian style. And we're probably more familiar with this style because this is more like my way or the highway. Yep. Some of the things we heard growing up was, if you don't like it, you can get out of my house, mm-hmm. And some of that probably came from the struggle, parents trying to appreciate what they have, and you're not gonna come in here and just tear my stuff up. You can either get on this train or you can get off, but this is where we're headed.
What's interesting about that is because that's what was done with me, and I actually did. I left.
Right.
I went to live with my aunt for 6 months. I mean, and I said to myself, even though I wish I'd had some of these techniques that you're going to be sharing tonight when I was raising my child. One thing that I did say, and I told my wife this, I said, I'm not going to put my child in the box in the corner.
Yeah.
Because if you say you can hit the highway, they may just actually do it.
Sure.
Okay. Now you just put your child in a vulnerable situation.
Right.
They're out there with nobody who really loves them, but plenty of people who want to abuse them and take advantage of them. I believe some, kids end up on drugs, end up in prostitution. They end up in jail because they're stressed out and they go rob somebody to get money. I mean, any number of things can happen. And I said, now, I always want my children to know that home is a safe haven. Now, you can't do anything you want to do in my home.
Sure.
But I never wanted him to feel he couldn't ever come home.
Sure.
And that became very important to me. So, but that's what the authoritarian parenting style can do for you.
Absolutely.
And a lot of parents have allowed that to happen. So and you just get out there.
The interesting thing about that parenting style is most of the terrorists in the world come from that particular type of parenting, because they've been so boxed in that they want the world to know I'm somebody. And so they go out and they do destructive things to get somebody to pay them attention, because they really just want it to be loved. You know, there's a part of all of us as human beings, we want to be loved. Okay. And so, it's always about rules. You can never be good enough. You never could do a good enough job. You can get straight A's on a report card, and if you had one absence, that the parent will just focus on that one absence versus the grades. And so that's that style of just saying, the child said, well, what's the use? Okay. And then they just run out and they do whatever they want. So that's the authoritarian style. Okay. And then you have the neglectful style, which is really the complete opposite. This parenting style is more so just do whatever you want. It's more like roommates. Okay. Just like you here, I'm here, stay on your side of the house, or stay on my side of the house.
So now, does that happen when, like, let's say that a child's been brought up very authoritarian, a lot of whoopings and beatings and a lot of just this, and so they say, well, I'm not going to do that with my child. So then they go to the complete extreme. I'm going to be my child's friend. Okay. Yeah, exactly. And the problems with that is,
well, the problem with the neglectful parent is that you're not leading your child. Okay. There's three things we talk about that a parent should be responsible for. That's guiding your child, leading your child, and mentoring your child. You should be nurturing what's already in that child. That child is clay. We're molding that child to be great citizens in society. And so when you're a neglectful parent, the child is not being shaped, and then society really is influencing them. Okay. And a child wants identity. They'll go out to school and they'll go out to their friends to find that. This is the child who comes home and they're always talking about what's going over at their friend's house. Okay. Because they like what they see and they want these things at home, but the parent is neglectful. They don't really involve with the child. Okay. And so that's the neglectful parent. Then there's the passive parent. Now that was the passive parent. Okay. Because the passive parent really is they're involved in the child's life, but it's really due to selfish motives. And this is the parent really who is the one who wants to give their child the world. The child is they're living vicariously through their child. And so whatever failures they had in life, they want their child to be so successful. And so the child can never do anything wrong. And it's funny because I deal with young men who have gotten women impregnated. And a lot of times when I have to call the parents and tell them their son has got a young lady pregnant, they can't believe it because little Johnny was their star child. Okay. But that's the vicariously trying to live through him so he can never do anything wrong. And even when it's time to correct and add consequences, it's hard for them to do it. That was me. It was hard for me to give discipline to my sisters.
So one parent, you can never do anything right. Right. Another parent, you can't do anything wrong. Right.
Well, which is funny because when we learned this, me and my wife, this is where we were. She was the authoritarian parent because of where she came from, and I was the passive parent. Wow. So we were probably passive why I was in your office so much is because we were both on both ends of the spectrum trying to parent this young lady, and she's just in the middle, it's just a ball of confusion. Okay. And so those opposite ends of the spectrum is where we constantly saw ourselves. Okay. It wasn't until we really figured out how to get to the middle, which is the really the most important place in parenting, which is to be authoritative over our child's life.
Authoritative, not
Yes.
authoritarian.
Right.
But authoritative. Okay.
Yes. So authoritative really is the type of style where we're gonna correct, but we're also gonna love them.
Okay.
You know, sometimes parents they're great at giving negative consequences, but they're horrible at giving positive consequences.
Okay.
And that's really the balance, is that we love them and we correct them. You know, when you do right, you should be rewarded. But when you do wrong, you should be punished for that. There should be a discipline for that.
Now, is that because of how we raise it, because of just how we are? I mean, I think about myself, even as a pastor and a husband, I'm pretty sure I'm guilty of that too. I'm quick to criticize. I teach this. Don't criticize, condemn, and complain.
Correct.
I'm very quick to criticize, condemn, and complain. And so, but if you don't praise, then what people develop to say is that you're always criticizing. Now, maybe you're not always criticizing, but you certainly aren't doing any praise or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and so when LyAshia would do the correcting with my sister, I would always come behind her.
Okay.
And I would really undermine her authority.
Okay.
Because I was just trying to, she was playing on my heartstrings, and it was just like, let me just do something to make her feel better, because she would just beat her down. It would just be a beat down, and she would just shut down.
Okay.
The lecturing, the styles of parenting where our parents lectured us, they talked us out of issues. This generation is totally different. They will sit there, they will listen, they'll go one ear out the other. So you have to have a style now that really, when we talk about being authoritative, it is really just to say, look, here's the rules, here's how it's going to be laid out, and leave it at that. You know, it's interesting that God set the foundation of the world, and he never came back to it and said, he never reiterated himself. When he set the foundation, that was it. You know, choose this day life. You know, I set before you life and death. When he said that, it was said, and that was it. And so we can learn a lot from if we just study how God parents us, is that he sets it out there for us, and he says, here's what's going to happen. Now it's up to us to take authority and follow through on that. And that's the authoritative parenting style.
So it is an acknowledgement that you are the authority.
Absolutely.
You know, it's kind of like on your job, that's the authority.
Sure.
Or when the police pull you over, that's the authority.
Sure.
And there's a certain set of rules that go along with that.
Right.
And so our job is to teach our children authority.
Absolutely.
And what that means.
And what happens is a lot of times, let me just encourage our viewers that they're going to test the limits.
Okay.
That's a natural response of a child to a parent, is to test the limits. How far can I take it? Okay. And we all have a child that's going to go right up to the edge and see how far they can get before they get in trouble. And then sometimes I see myself in my own child and say, Lord, help me, because I know how I was. Okay. And so they're going to test that limit. And what we just have to continue to do is stay consistent and stay to what we know is right, which is, here's where we're going. I'm going to love you. You do wrong, you're going to get negative consequences. You do right, you're going to get positive consequences. And studies show the more we praise someone, the more we encourage them, the more they're more likely to do what we need them to do.
LyAshia, you still there?
I am.
I want you to just share with us, as you all were making this transition and the experiences that you've now seen in your children. Just talk to us about how you all got to this place of being authoritative parents.
Well, it was trial and error. Like Maurice said, we parented his sister, and it was a nightmare because we were trying to grow up ourselves. So we were trying to help someone else develop into this, person who we believed God had called her to be. But at the same time, we ourselves had grown up, and we were still trying to become who God had called us to be. We were still trying to grow in our marriage. We were really fresh and new in our marriage when Marie came to live with us. So we had to just go through trial and error. Lots of visits to your office, First Lady, lots of tears, and just a lot of prayer. And once we really realized what it was doing to our marriage by us being on different ends of the spectrum, we really had to say, okay, enough is enough, and kind of figure out where we were going with our parenting, what we wanted to do. because our kids were little at that point, but we knew we didn't want to go through the cycle again with parenting them the way we were parenting Marie, because we knew that we were flawed in our parenting because we had never parented before. And so once we began our training and really going through sessions and reading about parenting, it was kind of like the light bulb popped on, like, oh my goodness, where was this, a year ago? Where was this 2 years ago? And so we really just had to take a look at what we were doing, where we wanted to go, how we wanted our marriage to be, because again, it had a direct effect on our marriage, and really take it from there.
Awesome. So, thanks for sharing that, LyAshia. So, Maurice, you got Marie in here, but Maurice, thank you. So, as you are, so the first thing is to convince parents that they need to adopt the right style of parenting.
Sure.
Which is authoritative. So once you, so we're in the sessions and you break that down and you start to see some light bulbs go off, then what do you start to talk about and deal with?
Well, the interesting thing about the parenting style is that they don't change.
Okay.
You just like our personalities. If you are a person who's more outgoing or ingoing, that's who you are.
Okay.
So your parenting style is a part of who you are. So the first thing we talked about in the sessions is that your style is not going to change per se in terms of you just turn on the light bulb and you go from being authoritarian to authoritative. Okay. What happens is that you become more aware of who you are as an authoritative parent, and you begin to start balancing yourself out. Say, I probably was just a little too harsh today without any reward to my child. Okay. There's something my child did today that could receive a praise in spite of all of the bad things that I looked for. Okay. And so that's what we begin to talk about, is really understanding how is it to look for places to praise our child. And that is the new behavior. Mm-hmm. The Bible says that old things have passed away, old things become new. We start looking for new behaviors of our child. This is where you really have to see what your child is doing throughout the day, and you find ways to praise them. I mean, we've taken this now, we're enrolling it in our marriage. Okay. And so we look for opportunities to bless one another, and we find that it's really encouraging us as adults. We say, man, I like that. That little prize or little gift we get every so often from one another. We say, wow, and we see what it does to our children. We start to encourage them.
It's interesting that you say that you made a point to say that people can't change on a dime. So even if you point out to me, I've been authoritarian and that's not a good thing, me sitting in your session for 45 minutes and I'm not going to go home and say, all right, I'm through being authoritarian. Because for most of us, we've been the way we've been for years. Right. In some cases for decades, and you can't throw it down. Me and First Lady have to do that with couples when we're doing marital counseling. I said, either how old you are or how long you've been married. Well, that's been years. Mm-hmm. 9 times out of 10, people who divorce say they tried counseling and counseling didn't work. Yeah. And so I say to them, well, if you've been doing it wrong for 10 years, what makes you think that our counseling session is going to flip the script? Right. I said, I need to start you on a journey of recognizing what you're doing wrong, so that when you do wrong, you can at least acknowledge that, and then begin to show you what things to do right. So that's the same thing you said has to happen in this transition with parenting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a step-by-step process. Now, what we have found in our transition to parenting more authoritative is that it becomes, we less argue about those small things with the children now, because we're starting to see that I trust her as a parent and she trusts me as a parent. Because there was a time where she didn't trust me as a parent because I didn't parent like she was brought up. Okay. I didn't parent like how she was raised. And so there was this constant, she didn't have faith in me as a man. So in the house.
When she leaves, she felt like you just gonna let the kids get away
with it. I'm just gonna let them do whatever, And then some of it was true, Pastor. Okay. A lot of times
you would let them get away with it.
I was that guy when she would come home from work. She'd get home at 3, at 2:30, we'd be cleaning the house, making sure everything is back in order, because we've been chillaxing all day. Okay. And so she had not a lot of faith in me. But what we started to see is that she started to see that my style and who I was really more softer. She was a lot more harsh with the kids.
Okay.
And so she started to come over to my side and she would say, now, Maurice, you need to be a little bit more stern right there.
Okay.
And so as we began to work together, it really helped us as parents working together with the children. Now, the caveat to this is that the style is really built for a single parent. When LyAshia is disciplining the children, that is not an opportunity for me to step in. Okay. You know, it used to be a time where in my house, when I got in trouble, my mom knew before my dad. She'd just go tell my dad and he would deal with it. Okay. Well, what happens is that my mom never had any authority in my life. She just undermined all of her authority with me. Okay. So when my dad was gone, oh, I knew it was party time. I knew I could do whatever I wanted to do because there was no way. If he was gone long enough, I could do my dirt on Monday. He wouldn't be back on Friday. He'd be forgot about it on Friday. He'd be too tired to whoop me on Friday.
Which is the problem with our kids who parents are very strict in the home and then send them off to school.
Sure.
Where the teacher don't have a belt.
Right. They can't discipline that way. And for as a single mom who's got multiple children, she's trying to figure out how to raise all of these children in the home. She sometimes can undermine her authority because she can undermine her authority by how she speaks about the parent who's not in the home because the child is now trying to mirror that relationship. You know, my daughters learn how to respect themselves by how I treat my wife. Okay. And so if we're always arguing and fighting and fussing, then they see that. And so it causes them to have disrespect. So we are consciously aware now, whereas before we wasn't. It doesn't, your style is going to be your style. We just over time become a little bit more consciously aware. You know, it's like the person working out, you know, he's trying to lose weight and he's like, I got to count these calories. You know, he may stop counting the calories, but at least he know if I eat that cereal, that's probably bad for me. You know, he may still eat the cereal, but at least he know now. Before he may not have known, and so you just become more consciously aware.
Okay. Dr. Grace, you still there?
I am.
Just real briefly, we have a few minutes here. I know that you get a lot of people coming into Triangle Marriage and Family for different types of counseling, but every now and then you'll have a person come in that's really struggling with parenting, with their children. Some of those sessions I've set in on with you on. What's your strategy on getting the parent to realize some of the things that we have to offer, whether it's the training, the teaching, learning different styles? How do you handle that when the parent comes in and begin to talk to you about some of the challenges that they're having in the home?
First of all, what we do is we take an assessment of what's going on to be able to identify the areas that they need either training or counseling in. Sometimes it's counseling, sometimes it's training. And so once we're able to identify what the areas of needs are through an assessment, then we can develop a plan, an action plan for them. More than likely, they didn't just get into it overnight, and it's going to take a time, process for them to be able to learn. But most of the time, it's first of all identifying. Once we identify them, we point them in the right direction. And we've been able to have some great success stories. I mean, sometimes the light bulb will go off in the parent's head when they're going through a class or a session, a workshop, when they see their particular scenario and they go, oh my goodness, that's her. And then they're able to learn strategies, going home, applying it, coming back and having counselors or having a instructor to be able to talk it through, usually helps. So we've been able to gain quite a bit of success in helping parents, through understanding where they are and taking the journey with them.
Okay, well, very good. And thanks, Dr. Grace. Now, Maurice, tell us about the ABCs. The Bible says, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge.
Sure.
I think a lot of this, I believe that marriages can work. I believe that parenting can work. I mean, sure. I know we got some parents can say, with everybody but my kids, because my kids are crazy, or everybody but my husband, because my husband is crazy, or my wife is crazy. But I really say that when God created marriage, He did not create divorce. Man created it.
Sure.
The Pharisees said, why did Moses allow for a writing of divorcement? He said, because of the hardness of your hearts. But from the beginning, it was not so. God never created marriage with a backdoor escape plan. He intended for it to work. So why wouldn't it work? And I go back to the passage in my personal story, for a lack of knowledge. And then he says, the lack of knowledge is not simply because they're ignorant. He said they even reject the knowledge when it's presented to them. So whether it's marriage, whether it's careers, jobs, or in your case, parenting, it really is about knowledge.
Sure, absolutely. You mentioned the ABCs.
Yeah.
ABCs is an acronym.
Okay.
And the A stands for antecedent.
Okay.
And that's just a fancy word for saying that when we think about behavior, it all has a root place. It all comes from someplace.
Okay.
You know, kids just don't do stuff just out of randomness. There is some root behind it. Now the challenge is figuring out what that root is, and sometimes this is where our professionals like Dr. Grace, where our professionals, mental health counselors, therapists, and people who've got far more acronyms behind their name than me come into play sometimes. But sometimes we can figure those small things out on our own by just studying our children.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because we were going back to this brother to brother session we was just coming out of, and one of the brothers was talking about how he had to put himself in his child's mind.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, a child sees he said his child got his good clothes and he just stumps through some mud. You know, his first instinct, why would you do that? But then he put himself in his child's mind, and the child don't think like an adult.
Absolutely.
And so that's where you're saying to get in that child's mind and understand where that behavior is coming from.
Absolutely. And we're teachers. The parent is the teacher to the child. We're the first authority, the first police officer, the first coach, the first pastor that our child sees.
Okay.
You know, it's amazing that our children see us before they see God. Because how does a child know God? It's through the parent. And so when we're yelling and screaming at them, that's who they think God is. That's who they think the police is. We're dealing with a lot of this in our society. And so having that understanding that these behaviors come from somewhere.
Okay.
They may have just maybe picked it up from you.
Okay.
They may have just saw it from mama and daddy.
But it was funny because we had a child a while back at our daycare, and we had the child was just cussing everybody out. And they told me that the child was an adopted child. I said, oh, okay, so the parents must have taken the child out of a bad home where he was getting that behavior. Now they're trying to train him up. And then they said, no, they had the child, so the child was 2 months old. So obviously they was doing all the cussing.
Absolutely. It comes from someplace. It has a root. So the first thing is to understand is that this comes from somewhere. It's not just out of space. You know, we sometimes are sitting baffled about trying to rationalize our child's behavior. And like that parent who said he put himself in the shoes of his child, his 8-year-old boy, and begin to now understand, you know, and all you're getting an understanding, as the Bible says.
Right.
And so that's the first step. And then second step is then understanding that there's a behavior that's going to precede that.
So that's your B.
Yes, that's the B, which is to say that anything that we can see, hear, that's the behavior. So if you see your child interacting with another child, that's a particular behavior.
Okay.
And you should see that. You should study that. How does your child interact with other children? You know, take some time and go up to the school and just peek in the room. You know, take a 30-minute lunch break and just watch your child with other children. You want to know how your child really is? Go to the school and watch how they act with them other kids. Then you'll figure out what kind of child you're dealing with. Because they're not going to do everything in front of you because they have a certain expectation that mama don't want me to act like that. But I can be free at school. I can be who I want to be at school. So that's the second part. And then the C is the consequences. Now, consequences have largely gotten a negative connotation. Okay. Because when we say consequences, we always think something bad. But the Bible says, I've set before you life and death. Choose life. So we take that concept to say that consequences are both positive and negative.
Okay.
When you choose life, Pastor,
Positive.
things happen to you.
Mhm.
But when we choose death, negative things happen to us in life. So we take that same concept and we put that in as a place for a child to understand that when you walk down the hallway, you've got a choice to make.
Okay.
You know, there's a responsibility on you. When you walk down the hall and you get to the classroom on time, that's a positive consequence, because now you're in class on time. You can probably get the better seat. You can probably get a better interaction with the teacher, so on and so forth.
Okay.
But when you're late for class, you know, sometimes now you got to sit in the back of the room. You're probably not going to get as much attention. And so we talk about those things. So the ABCs is the antecedent, what precedes the behavior.
And that helps us to, by understanding what precedes the behavior, that gives you kind of an understanding about the behavior, or what?
I wouldn't venture to say this is going to give you an understanding about why the behavior happened.
Okay.
I think that that's getting out of my pay grade. You get into the psychological things and so forth. But I do believe that it gives us an understanding that something is going to happen based on a history from this child.
Okay.
Not to assume, you know, we think about parenting, we're just trying to get our children to be perfect.
Okay.
I'm not trying to get my children to be perfect.
Okay.
I expect them to break a dish in the house. I expect them to get on my nerves sometimes. You know, it's a part of life.
Would another word then maybe be trigger?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Triggers.
Certain things always precede this behavior.
Absolutely.
So having knowledge of that is important.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And from there, now we can learn what type of child we're dealing with.
Okay.
You know, and maybe they do need to be on a medication. Maybe that child does need to be see more training and counseling and so forth.
Okay.
But it comes from learning what preceded the behavior, not necessarily just the behavior.
All right.
If a child is getting kicked out of school all the time, is that child a bad child? Well, a lot of people say, yeah, just kick them out.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes a child could be trying to find attention.
Okay.
So learning that my child I may need to spend a little bit extra time with them.
Okay.
And how we could really impact that behavior by just spending 30 minutes a day with our children.
All right.
So these are the things that are happening sometimes that we don't sometimes understand, because we don't look at what's happening before the behavior happens.
All right.
So and then the positive and negative consequences follow that.
Talk to me a little bit about this. I remember when me and my wife were just starting out, our son, and my son was, I guess a good word would be rambunctious. And I hear that from a lot of our African American parents, that the black boys, you know.
Sure.
And then I don't know if sometimes our school systems don't know how to deal with them, so on and so forth. But I do remember this. I remember having a mindset that I didn't want my child labeled. I didn't want him tested, and it's going to go with him for the rest of his life. Sure. And I've kind of changed my mind about that, but I see that even today. You don't want them to label your child. You want them to just do that. So kind of speak to us about that. You know,
Sure.
The schools and different things want to offer to get your child tested or so on. And you mentioned drugs, and you know, I used to not believe in, what is it, ADD,
right?
Attention Deficit Disorder,
yeah.
Until I started the daycare. Then I realized, you know what, it might be something to that, because I mean, I literally saw with my own eyes that the child just couldn't stay still. Sure. I mean, climbing up the back of the chair on the desk. I mean, I'd bring him to my office. Yeah. You know, big authoritative African American authoritative dad, and I would say, sit down, with a very strong voice. That child would sit down. Yeah. I mean, literally, Maurice, I would, and I know he was afraid, and the child would sit down. Right. And then I would turn around back to my laptop and start typing, and literally within 30 seconds, I would turn around and that child was climbing over the back of the chair. And I'm like, that's not normal. And so I began to say, well, maybe there is something to this. Yeah. So talk to us about, you know, parents being afraid to get their children labeled or tested or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that's internal. as we think about our society, and we don't want our child to be the one singled out.
Mhm.
Me and my wife are right now looking at kindergarten schools for our children. So we go to all of these parent meetings,
Mhm.
and you can just hear the parents raving about their child and trying to get their child to the top of the list. And
Mhm.
so, and I just sit back and I watch, because I'm sitting there saying, I don't want to try to give my child some advantage if that's not where they are.
Okay.
You know, I think first thing is to accept what child you have.
Mhm.
Marie was my sister, but I was parenting her.
Okay.
We realized that I had a plan set out for her, but that's not the plan she wanted for her life.
Mhm.
So I think one of the things is acceptance. We have to accept our children.
And that was my mindset, is that it don't matter what you want, it's what you have.
Absolutely.
And you need to get as much help as you can for the child that you have.
Absolutely.
And if they're willing to help you with your child,
Sure.
you need to take that help.
Sure.
Because some things literally can be out of our control. I mean, to me as a parent, one of the most important things is I want to remove the barriers and the obstacles that limit my child from being successful.
Absolutely.
And, you know, everybody wants the straight A student that's a letterman in sports and so on
Sure.
and so forth. And, you know, sometimes you're driving around and you see the parents, my child is
Right.
honor roll, my child is this. But every child ain't honor roll. Every child isn't a straight A student. Every child isn't.
Right.
And so our job as parents is to get our children what they need.
Absolutely. And it's not about me. My
Mhm.
job is just to train, mentor, and guide. That child is in the hands of the Lord. And so as that child is in the hands of the Lord, I'm really just helping them manage their life. I'm helping them to grow. Now I'm there, I'm present, but at the same time, I'm accepting whatever I've got. Now my daughters are twins, and they were born at the exact same time. They came from the same womb, but they're two different children.
Mhm.
One child is very go-get-it, and the other child is very laid back. And so it's foolish of me to try to get the child who's laid back to try to be outgoing and to do what the other child is doing, because now I'm just forcing her to do something I want her to do.
Okay.
And so that's one of the challenges we have.
One of the questions, we're about out of time, so I'm going to ask each of you all to kind of give some closing remarks. But one of the questions that came up was, how do you deal with bullying? Whether your child is being bullied or your child is doing the bullying, what would you add to that? So
Well,
I'll ask that question.
I don't tell my wife about the bullying, because
Okay.
she will be up there in a heartbeat.
Okay.
But again, the antecedent, this is the training that I would speak to. This is to understand why this is happening.
Okay.
And I know a lot of times the emotional side of us wants to say, well, let me go defend my child.
Okay.
I don't defend my child every time there's a bullying situation. My daughter now is in a multicultural classroom.
Okay.
Some of the things she's experiencing is part of the other kids' culture.
Okay.
And so we talk to her at home about understanding that she's different.
Okay.
And so now the punishment part, I hate that this happens in society. I hate that this is going on. But I think that one of the things that we can do with the bullying piece is that we need to be more involved. I think that our presence is necessary.
Okay.
Because now, not from a standpoint of just my father, when I was 11, I came home and told him about somebody who was bullying me, and he went out there and hit him with the cane. I don't suggest that.
Gotcha.
But I do suggest being more present. I do suggest, when you do have the time, I know our lives are busy, but being present in that child's life, just caring for them a little more, building up that confidence that you are just as important as the next person. And I think some of that can begin to help.
And I think that even helps with the other leaders. I mean, if a teacher has 30
Sure.
children, and they're gonna make a note, oh, that's Maurice's child right there.
Absolutely.
Maurice up here 2 or 3 times a semester. So
Absolutely.
I'm gonna make sure I don't neglect his child.
Yeah.
You know, so those
Absolutely.
types of things become important.
We're shopping for schools, and one of the things on my list is to make sure that there's an encouragement for parents to be involved with the child in the classroom,
Okay.
because I want to be there.
You know, I got a couple of more, and we're almost out of time. We're actually about out of time, but we're going to kind of do a little overtime here. One of the things that I want to focus on, and I'm probably going to ask you to be a part of this. We're working on bringing in some people our Fam Fest every year deals with family, and we normally call it the Youth Empowerment Summit, but I have this passion for fathers.
Sure.
And, everybody know about all the issues been going on in society about
Absolutely.
Black Lives Matter. But I want to take a little twist on it and say Black Fathers Matter.
Sure.
And so I want to have us look at that, why the father is so important and what it's done because the fathers are not there. So many have been institutionalized, locked up, absentee, or whatever. But this question, Sarah, is what advice do you have for fraternal twins? One is a people person and the other one loves to play alone. And the only one he communicates with is his brother.
Yeah, that's exactly what I deal with.
That really is. So
Yeah,
you have fraternal twins.
My twins are fraternal.
Okay, all right.
So one is on the opposite and one is more outgoing.
Interesting.
We've learned to accept that.
Okay,
now,
so first of all, accept it.
Yeah, exactly. But that doesn't mean that the child who is not as outgoing has no talents or strengths. As we talk about spiritual gifts, you can really learn spiritual gifts in your child very early.
Okay.
And so I would say really look for those spiritual gifts. One of my daughters, she loves to do puzzles and so forth. So I got to get down on the floor with her and do puzzles. But the other one, she liked to ride bikes and be outside and play in the dirt. So I got to get out there and play in the dirt with her. And it's challenging for me as a parent, but I'm learning to figure out what that person is interested in and motivate them by using what they're interested in.
Okay. LyAshia, before we close out, share something. What would you tell these parents? Many perhaps have experienced or are experiencing some of the same things that you all experience. Just a word of wisdom or something you'd like to share or encouragement. Before we close out, just what would you like to share?
Well, I definitely wanted to touch on the bullying piece because I think we're, like Maurice said, we're kind of dealing with that now. We have the one who's very outgoing. She's also very sensitive. So anything can hurt her feelings. If someone says, your shoes are untied, she goes into a tizzy. And so what we had to learn to do, me in particular, and her dad, is just love on her at home. The main thing I would like parents to know is that it starts at home. We as parents have to instill values and principles into our children at home every day before they go to school. We make sure we tell them how beautiful they are, how pretty they look, how amazing they are, and we just love on them so that when they go out into the school and into the real world, people say, well, you're not pretty. That's one of the things. One of the kids tells her, you're not pretty. She says, well, my mommy and my daddy tells me I'm pretty. So we just have to remember as parents to look on our children at home. And like Maurice has said multiple times, particularly for the question about the twins, just know that they are individuals. They're twins, but they're individuals as well. We deal with the exact same thing. We have one that doesn't really care about the limelight, and the other has to have it all the time. And they love each other. They embrace each other. We love them. We embrace them. We also embrace their differences. So just know that it starts at home. Parenting is, there's not really a handbook. It's trial and error. But if you want to be a better parent, you can be a better parent. But again, it's just trial and error and really honing in on what your strengths are as a parent and accepting your children the way they are, but helping them to become better.
Okay. Thank you very much, LyAshia. And as we close, I'm going to have Maurice to give some closing words. But one of the reasons why I really embrace Maurice and LyAshia, because I saw what they're doing, I saw what they went through, and I saw the turnaround that happened in their own lives. And I learned how to get smart people around me. I don't have all the answers. And even though this couple is probably half our age and probably been married for 20 years shorter than we have, but I am wise enough to know that they have some knowledge that can make a huge difference. They partner with us at Triangle Marriage and Family to do some of our parenting classes here. And we are going to be doing some things eventually with them, some online stuff that's available. But I want to encourage everybody that don't sit there and struggle quietly without the knowledge. We're doing it all the time. Our marriages are failing because of lack of knowledge. Our careers are failing because of lack of knowledge. Our children, our families, in-laws, outlaws, grown kids, teenagers. And it's all because of knowledge. And once you get it, it can make a difference in your life. So I want to encourage you to seek this couple out or seek us out here at Triangle Marriage and Family. Get involved with some of the training and classes that we do. We offer them periodically here at Triangle Marriage and Family Life Center. And then some of you that attend church, stop this couple. Try to get some free advice. They'll probably direct you to class. But Maurice, close us out.
Well, Pastor, thank you so much for having us on tonight. It's certainly been an honor to be a part of what you're doing here with Triangle Marriage and Family. And I would just say to you who's struggling or maybe just looking for a sharpening of your skills, it's to, number one, not give up. Our children are dealing with a lot of things in society now, and we just need to hang in there and continue to love them. You know, the Bible says without love, we don't have anything. So I would say to you, love your child. Love your child through their mistakes, love them through their challenges, and find new ways to encourage them. If I could leave you with one thing, I'm going to challenge you to find something new to encourage your child with. Find a new skill that they may have that you didn't quite see 2 weeks ago, and begin to just encourage them to continue to do that. And I guarantee you'll start to see a difference in your child.
Thank you, Maurice. We're going to close. I want to, again, thank you all for tuning in. And if you've heard something that you know is beneficial here today, I want you to send people back to this website. We, right now, we're still working on some things. But at this point, anybody can go to our victorioustv.org, and we'll have a recording of this live video chat available. So if you know some family, maybe that's what then gets them to come get the help, to just hear this session. Then this session perhaps will lead them to go out and get some good help in their situation. So thank you again. God bless. We appreciate you, and see you again next month, this same time on third Monday for Relationship Monday. God bless you.